Welcome to the Phoenix Experience, a podcast from Pfeiffer University's longest continuous literary journal, The Phoenix. This season is all about our staff, who only talk about the best books they've encountered and their passionate opinions on topics from A to Z. Today I'm with Kristen Slone, our poetry reader for The Phoenix. Why don't you introduce yourself?
So my name is Kristen Slone. I'm a junior here at Pfeiffer. This is my second semester on The Phoenix, and I'm a history major.
That's pretty unique. I'd say so. Yeah, so what kind of book did you pick for us today?
Today I picked one of my favorite leisure reads, which is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I know it's a really popular book, but it's just really great.
Harry Potter is a really good series. There's lots of fantasy elements and such wizardry, I guess.
Yeah, there definitely is. It's super fun to read.
I haven't read it in a very long time, but I always get nostalgia when I hear about it or see it or see a clip of the movie. But I guess I have a question for you. Movie or book? Which is better?
Okay, that's a really hard question. I was just thinking, though, that the movie reached so many people that I think it does some amazing things in bringing people in that wouldn't normally maybe think about reading the book, and I think that's awesome because I have had friends who watched the movie with me and they decided to read the book because of it, and so that's great. It's always good to get people reading. But as always, I would say that the book is better just because it does have more detail. But, the visuals in the movie are amazing. The entire series, they did really well. So it's a tough pick, but I would say the book just because I personally prefer to read.
Yeah, and if you think about it, 100 pages of a book, imagine how much detail you can cram into it. Whereas 100 minutes of a movie, good luck.
Exactly.
You can only get a fraction of it.
Yep, that's very true.
But at the same time, movies are more interactive. You can watch them with friends and actively talk about it. Yep. Whereas if you're reading a book, you have to read a sentence, pause for a minute, and then talk about it. But at the same time, the conversation's still great.
Yeah.
So, this Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, why did you pick this book of all the books? Was there a personal attachment to it or something?
Yes. So initially, if you remember, I told you I was going to pick The Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
And that is because that is personally my favorite book in the entire series. However, I found that The Sorcerer's Stone is just annoyingly the book that I remember the most because, and here's the reason why, because every time I go back to read this series, this is the book that I start and then get too busy to finish the rest of the series. So I have read this book over and over a lot of times.
So wait, you've been reading Harry Potter on and on constantly?
Oh yeah, for sure. I first started reading Harry Potter in middle school, and ever since then, at least probably once or twice a year, I pick up this book again and try to make the time to read the entire series again. But as you get older and older, you get a lot busier. So it has,
sad.
In middle school, it's like, the thing I do for fun is read, and that's what I do in all my free time. But now that my free time is so small,
it's really hard to get through all the books. That's pretty hard. So I know that you picked the first book, but what was it about the fifth book, The Goblet of Fire? Yeah, The Goblet of Fire is, I'm pretty sure, the largest book, and it does take the longest to get through. However, I just think that the storyline, it brings so much more to the story than you've experienced in the world before. So it brings in two different schools other than Hogwarts, and you really get to experience how they also, you kind of, how do I put this? So you get to understand the cultures.
You understand the different cultures, and you see how other people are living in this magical world outside of Hogwarts, and how it extends farther than that, I think is why I liked it so much.
Yeah, so it introduces a new world element of change. So not only are you seeing Harry's school with Hagrid and all the other characters and Dumbledore and Snape, but you're also seeing these other schools. And wasn't one of the schools an all-girls wizard school?
Yes, so there was one that was an all-girls wizard school, and the other was I think it was very athletic. And I really like it because one of the men, Victor Crumb, ends up dating Hermione or taking her to the winter ball or whatever.
Oh.
And Ron gets
that.
Ron gets really, it's a really good part of the story before they become a thing in the final books.
Huh.
And I really like the drama with that. And
because drama.
Yeah, it's really funny.
But yeah, that's The Goblet of Fire. They're introducing the what is it, the World Wizarding
the
Tournament?
Trial Wizard Tournament.
Yeah, Trial Wizard Tournament.
And I also really like, I don't know if you've been seeing everyone talking about it, but in the book, they talk about when Harry's underage, and he's not old enough to be putting himself. But his name gets put in there, and in the book, it says that Dumbledore, like, calmly says, Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? Like, inquisitively. And then in the movie, you see him storming across the room and basically looking like he's going to choke Harry out, saying, Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And it's just such a different interpretation.
That almost
and it's
doesn't
so funny.
Sound like it's his character.
Yeah.
He's like such an old wise soul.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you say that, because that's one of my favorite parts that you learn throughout the book, is that Dumbledore isn't who he seems to be. At the beginning, in the Sorcerer's Stone, you really learn, or you start to learn about Snape and Dumbledore and their dynamic and the narrative with Harry. And Snape seems like the big bad guy, and Dumbledore seems like, the fatherly figure, the one who seems to be protecting him and helping him out along the way. But by the end of the book, you realize Dumbledore wasn't really looking out. I mean, he was looking out for Harry, but not in such a caring way. And Snape was actually the one who was protecting him a lot.
Yeah, like the coldness that Snape gives off, maybe you still watching over him in a more, I guess, subdued manner.
Yeah, especially because he was so in love with Lily, his mother, and then
I thought that was strange.
Yeah, and he despised his father, and Harry looked a lot like his father. I like to think that's probably why. Yeah, and so Snape was a really complicated character. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's such a complicated character. I can't even begin to, analyze him.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite part about the Goblet of Fire?
My favorite part about the Goblet of Fire? I really enjoy the parts, well, this is kind of morbid. I really enjoy I really enjoy the parts where all of the really violent things happen during the Triwizard Tournament, where Harry is fighting the dragons, and they are in, just in the middle of combat, and it's so exciting and crazy. And then, when they're in the maze, and I really like that. Oh, another really awesome part of that book I love is when he finally figures out, with Cedric's help, I believe, that you have to put the egg underneath the water to get the message out, and he does that while he's taking a bath. And the movie does provide a lot of awesome imagery for that, and that's one of my favorite cinematic parts of that series. But it's also really good in the book, so I would say those two. Yeah,
I don't really remember reading it as much as, the scenes of the movie where Harry's fighting the dragon and the seaweed kind of scene where they're going underwater and he has to rescue his friends. Was that also the same in the book?
It's very similar, yes. Okay. I think the book has to provide a lot more, I think that's why that book is so large, is because you really have to pack a lot of stuff in to give the details that you need to understand a new dynamic, right? Because they're introducing this new thing, the tournament, that they have to really explain to you. But in the movie, it's almost a little easier because you get to use the visuals, and they were able to use special effects and awesome stuff to make it really wonderful to watch.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I like how this has been a series that you're constantly drawn to. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation.
Yes, it has.
Not a student Pfeiffer? Love books filled to the brim with riveting poems, fiction, and creative nonfiction pieces? Then pre-order our 60th anniversary edition of The Phoenix and brag to all your friends that you're holding a rich piece of history. For more info, check our link in the description.